Please like, comment, and subscribe to Past Fan Podcasts. It really does help this channel. Today we're going to be diving deep into the story of Robert Durst. A story full of wealth, mystery, and alleged murder.
A fascinating case.
Yeah.
Really perplexing.
You sent over a fascinating paper, by the way, titled Robert Durst, A Life of Wealth, Mystery, and Murder.
Yeah.
And I'm very fascinated to unpack this with you. What stands out to you right away about this story?
Well, I think Durst's life, it seems like it was just this constant dance with darkness, even from his, very, very privileged beginnings.
Yeah, we're talking extreme wealth here. His family owned some of New York City's most iconic landmarks, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
One World Trade Center, for example.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine a more, a more stark contrast, right? Between this, life of extreme privilege and then this undercurrent of tragedy that follows him.
Totally. So let's talk about this early incident with his mother's death. The paper mentions it was ruled a suicide, but there were always these whispers of something more sinister. What do you make of that?
It's definitely a pivotal event. I mean, try to imagine this. You're 7 years old. You witnessed your mother's death.
Horrible.
Right. Whether it was a suicide or something else, that's a trauma that can leave a mark on you, right?
Right.
Psychologically, it's got to have some bearing on his development, maybe even contributing to some of this darkness that followed him.
For sure. I mean, who knows how that would manifest later in life, but definitely something that's going to stick with you.
Oh, absolutely.
The family dynamics, too, add another layer of complexity to all of this.
Of course.
The paper describes his relationship with his father and siblings as strained, particularly after his younger brother was chosen to lead the family business.
Yeah.
I wonder, do you think that this perceived rejection could have fueled a sense of resentment?
I mean, it's definitely possible. You're passed over for something like that, despite your intelligence and capabilities.
Right, you're capable.
Creates this deep-seated feeling of maybe inadequacy or injustice. And we see that a lot, right? These kinds of experiences, they manifest in unhealthy ways later on in life.
Yeah, totally. And so then we have the disappearance of his first wife, Kathleen McCormack Durst, in 1982.
Right.
Young medical student about to graduate. Friends described her as increasingly fearful of Robert's behavior, saying that he was very controlling. And what I find really intriguing is the lack of physical evidence in her case. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the lack of concrete evidence really hampered that initial investigation. And it remained cold for years.
For years.
Before being reopened in 1999.
Wow.
And it just raises more questions, right? What changed? What made the authorities take a second look all of a sudden?
Exactly. It's like piecing together a puzzle with a bunch of missing pieces. And then in 2000, we have the murder of Susan Berman.
Right.
Who was a close friend of Durst's.
Yeah.
And potentially a key witness to Kathleen's disappearance.
Possibly, yeah.
The paper sort of hints at that. Tell me about this murder.
Just chillin'. Execution style. Single gunshot to the back of the head.
Wow.
And it begs the question, was she silenced to prevent her from talking to the police?
Oh, for sure. I mean, the timing is incredibly suspicious.
Oh, yeah.
And then just a year later, we have this crazy twist with the killing of Morris Black in Texas. Durst is living disguised as a mute woman when he kills and dismembers his neighbor.
It's unbelievable.
It's nuts, right?
Absolutely shocking.
But, and here's the kicker, Durst claimed self-defense and was acquitted.
I know. How does the defense manage to pull that off? Convict a jury that this multimillionaire,
right, the multimillionaire,
real estate heir, was scared for his life from a seemingly harmless neighbor.
Yeah.
It's a question that really gets into, legal strategy, the power of a good defense team.
Yeah, totally. So let's talk about motive here. In each of these cases, what could have driven Durst to commit these acts? Was it a need for control, like we talked about earlier, or a desperate attempt at self-preservation?
It's really hard to say. I mean, the motives are just so murky. It's a web of speculation.
Yeah.
But there's this common thread of fear.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Running through each case. Fear of exposure, maybe. Fear of losing control. It's really intriguing.
Definitely. And his immense wealth and privilege, it has to have played a role in his story, right?
Yeah.
Did his fortune shield him from consequences? Did it influence these investigations and trials?
It's impossible to ignore that possibility. It's a question that resonates with so many high-profile cases. How does money affect the pursuit of justice? Does it create an uneven playing field? It's a troubling thought.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then you have the media circus surrounding Durst.
Yeah.
He becomes this true crime celebrity. Documentaries, news segments, he's everywhere. What do you think about the media's portrayal of him?
It's fascinating, right? The line between documentary and entertainment, it can get so blurred, especially with someone as enigmatic and controversial as Durst.
100%.
Yeah.
And with his own participation in the Jinx, where he seemingly incriminates himself.
Right.
Raises questions about the ethics of true crime storytelling and how objective it can truly be.
Yeah, for sure. It's complex, no easy answers.
Right.
I think it's important to consider the potential for exploitation, the sensationalism.
For sure.
But at the same time, we have to acknowledge the role these documentaries play. They raise awareness. They can even prompt investigations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's dig a little deeper into the legal battleground, particularly the Morris Black trial. The tactics employed by Durst's defense team were really remarkable.
Yeah, they were masterful. I mean, morally ambiguous, but still masterful. They built this whole narrative of self-defense, right? Highlighting alleged threats and aggression from Black. They skillfully diverted attention away from the gruesome act of dismemberment. They painted this picture of a panicked, desperate man acting out of fear.
So they successfully created enough reasonable doubt to get an acquittal.
They did. They challenged the forensic evidence. They exploited procedural errors. It seemed like they pulled out every stop.
It's fascinating how they were able to do that.
It really is.
It shows you the power of a well-funded, very experienced legal team.
Yeah. It speaks to just how intricate our legal system is. Even the most damning evidence can be challenged and interpreted in different ways.
It makes you think, for sure.
Definitely.
We're going to delve further into those legal strategies after a quick break. Stay with us as we continue to unravel the perplexing life of Robert Durst.
The Morris Black trial, it really was a masterclass in, legal maneuvering. It makes you wonder about whether justice is truly blind or if wealth can actually tilt those scales.
It really does. It's like something out of a movie,
Yeah.
A guy admits to dismembering his neighbor, but he still walks free. So can we break down the defense's strategy here? How did they create that reasonable doubt?
Well, one key thing was they shifted the whole narrative, you see. Instead of focusing on the dismemberment, they focused on self-defense.
Okay.
They emphasized Durst's supposed fear of Black, presented him as this vulnerable target, said Black had threatened him.
So they basically turned the tables, made Durst out to be the victim?
Exactly. And they used his wealth and his eccentricity to their advantage, too. They argued that a man of his stature wouldn't risk everything by committing such a brazen act unless he truly felt threatened.
It's a bold strategy for sure, playing on those societal perceptions of wealth and privilege.
It is. And on top of that, they really picked apart the forensic evidence.
Okay.
Highlighted any inconsistencies, any uncertainties. They raised enough doubt about the prosecution's case that the jury could actually consider other scenarios.
It really highlights the power of a good narrative in the courtroom.
Absolutely. Legal battles, they're often fought not just on the facts, but on perception. It's about storytelling.
For sure. And speaking of narratives, let's talk about the media frenzy that surrounded Durst.
Yeah.
He became a true crime icon. Documentaries, news segments, everyone was talking about him. Why do you think people were so drawn to this story?
Well, the whole fascination with true crime is complex, right? It's this mix of morbid curiosity and wanting to understand the darkest parts of human nature.
Yeah.
And Durst, with his wealth, his eccentricities, these alleged crimes, he offered this glimpse into a world that most people can't even imagine.
He was such an enigma. Like he was living a double life, it seemed.
Yeah.
And there's that unforgettable moment in the Jinx, right, where he's caught mumbling to himself on a hot mic.
Oh, yeah. What the hell did I do? Kill them all, of course. Just a bombshell revelation.
Yeah.
Ignited public interest all over again.
It seemed like he was confessing right there on camera.
It did. And it really raises those important questions about, the role of documentaries in these true crime cases. Did the filmmakers exploit Durst? Did they contribute to his downfall? Those ethical considerations, people are still debating them today.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Pursuit of truth versus the potential for exploitation.
A delicate balance. But let's go back to the human element of this story for a minute. Let's talk about Kathleen McCormack Durst again. Can you remind us about her and what happened?
Yeah. Kathleen, or Kathy as her friends called her, was a bright, promising medical student. About to graduate, had dreams of a successful career, a happy life. But her marriage to Robert, it became more and more troubled. Friends described his behavior as controlling, erratic. She confided in them, said she was afraid, wanted to leave.
It's scary to think about. A young woman trapped in this marriage, fearing for her safety.
And then she just vanishes.
Without a trace.
Crazy.
The initial investigation, it didn't go anywhere because of the lack of evidence and because Robert wasn't cooperating. He said he dropped Kathy off at a train station, but her friends and family, they didn't believe it. They suspected foul play. Years passed, the case went cold, and all these unanswered questions just lingered.
It's heartbreaking to think of her loved ones going through that and not knowing what happened to her. But then in 1999, the investigation is reopened. What happened? Why the renewed interest?
A few things came together. New evidence, witnesses coming forward. And Kathy's family and friends, they were determined to keep her memory alive. That played a big part.
Wow.
The spotlight was back on Robert, but just as the investigation was gaining traction, another tragedy happens.
The murder of Susan Berman.
In 2000, yeah. Hard to believe that was just a coincidence.
Yeah, right.
Investigators thought that Berman, who had known Durst for decades, she needed details about Kathy's disappearance. Maybe she was silenced to stop her from talking to the police.
I mean, it makes sense.
And how she died, a single shot to the back of the head. It was so similar to the Morris Black killing later.
It seems like there was a pattern, right?
It does.
A pattern of violence, a need to control the narrative.
These three cases, the disappearing wife, the murdered confidant, the dead neighbor, they're connected. You can't ignore it.
Right, they're all connected.
Each one marked by this brutality and this attempt to hide the truth.
It's a reminder that darkness can be anywhere, even in the wealthiest circles.
Yeah.
And the consequences, they can be devastating.
It makes you think about the impact of wealth and privilege on justice. Does money equal getting away with things? Does it let some people operate above the law? These are tough questions that this case brings up.
Robert Durst's story is fascinating, but it's also really unsettling.
It is.
We've talked about his upbringing, the details of the crimes, the legal strategies that shaped his fate, but there's still more to uncover, right?
There is. Durst's story doesn't end with the Morris Black trial. We still need to talk about his conviction for Susan Berman's murder and his death in prison.
Right. Those are big pieces of the puzzle.
Leaving behind all these unanswered questions, a trail of shattered lives.
Let's dive into that final chapter. This is going to be interesting. Welcome back to our deep dive. We've been untangling this complicated story of Robert Durst, a man caught up in wealth, mystery, and these alleged murders. As we reach the final chapter, we're really left grappling with his actions and the lingering questions that just won't go away.
After decades of avoiding real accountability, Robert Durst's past finally caught up with him. In 2021, he was convicted for Susan Berman's murder, his longtime friend.
It felt like, a long-awaited moment of justice, a testament to all those people who fought so hard for Susan Berman.
Yeah, the prosecution, they really laid out their case, weaving together all this evidence. They highlighted Durst's own incriminating statements from the Jinx documentary and even his own trial testimony.
And that recording, right, the one where he mumbles, "Kill them all," of course, was a game changer, wasn't it? Like an accidental confession caught on tape.
It was pivotal for the jury. It offered this glimpse into Durst's mind, this chilling reminder of his alleged crimes. But before Durst could be held accountable for everything, he died in prison in 2022.
It's bittersweet. Justice for Susan Berman's murder, but the mystery of Kathleen McCormack Durst's disappearance is still unsolved.
A harsh reality for her family and friends, still looking for answers, closure, some peace.
It reminds us that sometimes justice just isn't possible, leaving behind so many unanswered questions and such a profound sense of loss.
And Durst's ability to evade consequences for so long, helped by his money and privilege, makes it even more tragic.
It makes you think about our justice system, the power of wealth and influence to create an uneven playing field.
Durst's life, these crimes, they highlight that intersection of wealth, privilege, and the legal system. How do these things affect justice? The search for truth. It's a question we need to ask.
Our deep dive into Robert Durst has taken us into some dark corners of human behavior, exploring the why and the how of these incomprehensible actions. We've gone through the complexities of his life, the chilling details of the crimes, the legal battles that shaped his fate. This is a story that will continue to spark debate and fascination for years to come.
We've reached the end of our exploration, but we're left to consider the impact of trauma, the allure and the danger of wealth, and the elusive nature of truth. This case makes us think about human nature, about how fragile life is, and how important it is to seek justice for those who've been silenced.
It reminds us that behind the headlines and the sensationalism, real lives have been shattered by tragedy and loss.
It emphasizes the importance of empathy, compassion, and a relentless pursuit of justice, no matter what the obstacles.
This has been a challenging and unsettling experience, but it makes us ask those tough questions about ourselves and the world we live in. Thank you for joining us as we navigated the world of Robert Durst.
It's been a thought-provoking journey, and we hope it has encouraged you to think critically and have meaningful conversations about justice, accountability, and the pursuit of truth.
Please like, comment, and subscribe to Past Fam Podcasts. It really does help this channel.